All right. It is Friday, and we are fired up.
We are fired up.
Yes. This is Rick at Studio USA, here with my co-pilot, Wayne. And we've got a couple of handsome devils here today from Abby Halliday in the no longer ironically named town of Prosper. And we've got...
Nick Nordman.
And...
Mike Farish.
All right. How's it going, guys?
It's going
Good.
great. Fired
All
up
right.
on Friday.
Yes. All right, there we go. Yeah, let's get going, guys. So we've all, y'all already done your magic mind shot. So
Yeah,
now...
sorry.
That's okay. Y'all will be smarter than me, faster than me. So it's like, now I got to play catch up. Okay. So how's it going, Wayne?
It's good. You
All
ready
right.
to rock and roll?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you guys are now, you're not a team. You are theoretically in competition with each other, right?
There's no competition with Mike.
Oh.
He wins it all.
All right.
I mean,
all right.
Hate to admit it, but it's true.
Yes. And so as some of our more astute, well, of the three folks watching, the most astute of them would probably notice that you're not from around here.
That is correct. Usually my pasty white skin gives me away. So
You've got good even color today. So this is good. And the cameras are very, very...
spray tan.
Yeah, there you go. So now, what part of the UK?
From Middlesbrough, which is northeast England.
All right.
About 2 hours south of Scotland, 4 hours north of London.
Whoa. Okay.
So-
So that's basically like the Texas of England. Like, oh man, like what do we got in Texas that's like out in the middle of nowhere? Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Most of Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. You're not going to take a vacation where I'm from. I'm just going to say that. We got a nice nuclear power plant.
Hey,
Oh,
that
that's-
helps. That helps. Keep it green.
It's as good as we get.
So, we are going to get fired up today, and let's fire up the Oracle, otherwise known as ChatGPT. Regenerate previous with a new topic for today's show.
Ooh. I love this just like shooting into the, yeah. Never
Hey,
know.
And survey says the famous quote today is your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work, and the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And that's from some dude named Steve Jobs.
Love it.
What'd he ever do?
Boom.
So today's topic is mastering the morning, building a routine for success.
Ooh.
So routine for success. So I am actually a very, very concretized creature of habit where if I get off my routine, sideways, big time. What about you guys? So are you routine folks? Are you creatures of habit?
I'm not.
I'm not either.
I just kind of figure it out, try to keep up with the kids, and just go with it.
Okay, so
Regenerate.
Yeah.
Regenerate. we're going down.
Yeah.
So like, all right, now I'm curious. So like every day is just totally random. Just wake up, ass on fire, just going crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think with anybody that has kids, you kind of have to just roll with it. And I think that's an important part about being in real estate. No day is the same.
There you
And
go.
I think if you always have it set, I mean, there's certain things you do, but it's not, I've got to do this at 8:10, I've got to do this at 8:25, 8:30. It's, you get up, you know you've got to do certain things today, and you just have to prioritize. Like this morning, I would have done other stuff or got here earlier, but I had to go to my daughter's assembly for an award she won. I didn't know about that until last night at 4:45.
Right
So if I
on.
had that schedule I had to live by, I wouldn't be able to do that.
So I think adaptability comes in there too, and
Yeah.
some essentially not only adaptability but able to pivot and sort of rethink things in the moment. Which again in real estate, but now the man with is it five kids. So is it possible to have a routine with 5 kids?
Man, I think it's different for everybody. I think some people need a more routine than other people do. I think it's also like the level of complexity you're dealing with, right? So like most people hit a complexity ceiling that it requires, for most people, systems are the price for success, right? So they've got to systemize some things in order for them to get to the next level, right? And there's some things they can wing, some things they can systemize. So I think it's different for everybody, but I think you have to look at like what are the frustrations you're having, and does that work? So like I know some people they're like, man, they can kind of wing it in the morning and that works for them. Other ones, if they don't nail their morning stuff, the whole day is chaos, right? So I think it kind of depends on the individual and what they're after.
And so now, Mike, you said like no routine whatsoever. So
No, so I'm probably fairly similar to Nick. I mean, I've got 2 kids, so it varies per schedule. But I mean, my routine, I'm typically in the office every day at 9 o'clock, give or take.
Well, go ahead and put that in the routine column.
Okay. I'm usually in the office between 9 and 11.
There you go.
And then, I just go in and I'll kind of note down, these are the things I've got to do today. That's typically my, but like Nick said, every day is different. So we work on, different things every day. I know a whole bunch of realtors that have a set schedule. It's like, you're making cold calls from 9 in the morning till 11. That's not my business. I don't think it's Nick's either. We kind of have our own separate marketing that we do that doesn't dive into
Old school. Yeah. So you're not doing the old school, just sort of like hammer it. So now I'm curious. So you go to the office every day, which is statistically, I'm going to say like, that's not really a realtor thing to do.
Nope.
And so my nephew is an agent at Ebby Southlake. And I told him, go in. He's been there for 10 years. And it's like, go in and get on the phones as much as humanly possible and find out what the actual business looks like and then develop your own routine.
Right.
And so it sounds like what you guys do. So now when you go to the office, do you guys still do the phones or do any of that or?
I don't anymore.
I don't either.
And I think, so probably in the past few years, I've got to a place in my business where I've really started to kind of prioritize personal life as well, which I think is kind of where I'm not as set in a routine.
Yeah.
Because I've got a real nice balance of work life and family life. And I could get super routined and drive myself, a million times more and make more money and produce more, but at the sacrifice of what?
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that's underneath all this is like one of the quotes that I talk about a lot is like time management is kind of pointless if it's not supported by priority management. And I think what you guys have got really good at is like priority management. And I think that's just important, right? Because most people, the issue is they're unscheduled, but it's really a reflection that they're unprioritized. So I think if you're prioritized, like that's beautiful. If you can kind of go, here's the like, could things, here's the should things, and then here's the must things, and you can like lay that out. It's not just a running to-do list. I think most people get lost like this running to-do list that isn't prioritized. Right, it's like everything kind of has equal weight, and I think those are usually the people that are lost. Right, it's like because everything's kind of equal, which means they kind of get nothing done, or they do the easy stuff first, and the important stuff never actually happens. So I think if you can build it based on priority management, I think it's beautiful. So for you guys, I'd love to know, what have you done to build your business so that it is coming to you, and how do you manage the priorities throughout the chaotic day of real estate?
I think ours being in it now, this will be my 24th year.
Yeah.
It's that relationship.
Bro.
What?
Yeah.
He moisturizes.
We should probably just pivot to talking about cream.
Yeah.
and lotions and potions.
I've been taking Magic Minds forever.
He's actually the inventor of Magic Mind.
Yes.
I now feel
he is
older,
87 in Earth years. In Elon years, he's 15. So 24 years.
Yep.
Holy cow.
I think the biggest thing is it's all relationship.
Yeah.
You hear people talk about how real estate is easy and everything like this, and I've had clients that after working with us, then they get in the business and then they come back and talk and they're like, well, it's really not that easy. It's kind of like that where they talk about the duck just cruising across the top, but your feet are going crazy.
Right.
So it's working through all that and making sure that you have those relationships where people seek out your advice. And I think it's not just about real estate stuff. It's, hey, I trust you. I've got a question about this, or I've got a question about this. I'll get the calls all the time is, hey, this really doesn't concern you, or it's not something you work with, but do you know anything about this?
So what are the two or three best things you've done to maintain the relationships? Because I think sometimes people say relationships, but like how have you built those? How do you like maintain those in like a consistent fashion?
So obviously going back to your first question of if we have a routine, I think obviously that's something consistency could be a lot better. Mm-hmm. But I think too, sometimes if you're so consistent, it doesn't come across as genuine.
Yes, there is something to be said for not being mechanical.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
100%.
So I think the biggest way that we've done it is, like I said, with my kids, I coach a lot of their baseball teams, a lot of their soccer teams. Mm-hmm. And I think if people see you taking and investing time in something that doesn't benefit you or even your kid and they're like, wait a minute, if he works that hard for free and doesn't do this,
Right.
how is that going to correlate into, and hey, wow, I trust what that person's doing. So I think that's the other big thing. And then one of the big things, and I know Mike and I have kind of talked about it, because Mike's really, really good on the video, which I'm trying to do. And I've always said this face does not sell real estate. So it's scary to get in front of the cameras and everything. We do a lot of events, but we have them at our house.
Interesting.
So like we have our client appreciation party. We call it the first Christmas party of the new year. So it's always in January. Because one, it's easier to get people to show up in January than it is in December.
Absolutely.
And it lets me keep my Christmas lights up for an extra month and a half.
Brilliant.
But it's bringing them to my turf, and it's where I feel comfortable. And I think when you do that, people see what you're doing is a lot more genuine. So we don't have the, hey, call this person every so often. It'll just be little things of, maybe I was showing a house in their neighborhood. Hey, drove by, your shrubs in the front look great. The house is looking really good. I'm not trying to get anything out of it, but it's just constantly staying in front
Yeah.
and picking up the phone calls when it's not the most opportune time too.
Yeah.
That also shows people that, wow.
And to that, it's like one of the things that I get constantly like, thank you for returning my call. I'm like, what?
Right.
Did that like, is that not a thing anymore?
No one picks up their phone anymore.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so like part of the secret in today's world is just to actually show up at all, And then now, now we've got the guy that's critical and not good on video for now. But what about?
Yeah, I thought this was
Yeah.
a radio show. This is
Well, and
Yeah,
I will
plot
say,
twist.
I will say one thing that by having folks in here, it's a home game for me.
Yes.
So I absolutely feel a lot more comfortable and just sort of naturally decompress just because everybody comes to, and I do the same thing if I go to events or anything. I get there super early where I'm like the first guy there. Like when I talked to y'all's office, I was there like probably 25, 30 minutes early before anybody, while the...
You probably saw me and Nick walking late with our routine.
Yes.
Was I at that meeting?
Hey, but as an old school sales guy, production covers a multitude of sins.
Yes, it does.
So y'all get some diva leeway there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's Nick talk about diva. Jeez.
So now you're marketing, so you have to be consistent in video.
Yeah, and that's something I've really invested in back end of last year. So when the market was, pretty much dead, the fourth quarter, nothing happened. I'm like, okay, I have to pivot. I've got to almost rebrand myself to boost myself into 2024. So I heavily invested in video. Now, I did a decent amount of video before, but I'd say 10x'd it.
Nice.
Where it's very consistent. And again, just kind of putting myself out there. But to kind of piggyback off what Nick said, the biggest thing, I think me and Nick work very, very similarly. Similarly? I don't know if that's a word. It is in England.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, go with
it. Yeah.
We Brits say that.
You're going to have to put subtitles on everything I say. But the key thing for us is being genuine and being honest. It's a very easy business to get into and just try and look at the paycheck for yourself.
Yeah.
And I always say we can sell any house in DFW, but every house might not be right for every client. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to say, hey, there's some red flags on this one.
Right.
Maybe this isn't the best option, and kind of put I know it's our fiduciary duty to kind of put ourselves aside of the transaction, but sometimes that is difficult to do, especially when you're a new
human nature is what it is.
Yeah, especially when you're a new agent, you're trying to get your business going, you want to get that first paycheck. But I think that's what we do well. It's just good, solid advice, and we're always available to take a call, even if we know it's not going to get to a sale. It's, hey, if you need advice, you call me. I'm not going to pressure you to sell your house. I'm not going to pressure you to buy one. I will eventually, but
that'll come later.
It's a short-term strategy versus a long-term play.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Because you'll see agents come in that blow up,
Yeah.
and you're like, what are they doing? And 5 years later, they're gone.
They're gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The answer to that is they're doing whatever it takes, regardless of I always try to say, like, tell my guys, I just want to be the coolest guy in the room. You know what I mean? And if I'm ripping people off or if I'm saying, shit that isn't real or just to get, so I as an old school commission sales guy where you eat what you kill, I was taught in the used car methods, way back in the day where like if you called, it didn't matter what you were asking for. I had that. Come on in. Because it's like you're not gonna give me money over the phone. Come on in. And then it was my job when you got there to find something here that I could get you to pay for. And so having that as my original foundation and then learning the hard way over time that, oh, that's not actually the foundation for long-term success. And how much of it, because like for me, a lot of it was counterintuitive where like you're talking about like I want the pay or I need the paycheck versus I need to be authentic and genuine. So now I try to teach everybody, make what's on the label match what's in the can. So that way, when you are being yourself, it's not an affect and you don't have to remember what did I do.
Yep.
And so one of the benefits of having the coach here is I get to get the 5,000 foot view of, so like this, where you have two guys that are the same but different, so how would you approach that from the standpoint of just almost getting like a mindset or a way for those guys to either look at, because it's like, my thing is, I don't know what I don't know. And is it something where the priorities, because like me, I can sit here as like workaholic bachelor dude with no kids. I got ex-wives, no kids. And it's like, oh dude, I'll just work 7 days a week, whatever, but I'm always fascinated. Like, how do you do the balance thing? Or do you teach that? Or did you guys learn it the hard way?
I would say I learned the hard way, for sure. I mean, I grinded like nobody's business right at the start. I mean, door knocking, walking neighborhoods.
Legit.
In 90, 100-degree heat with a suit on, just trying to get stuff, and again, 7 days a week, trying to get stuff going for the business. And it's only really since my business has picked up really the past couple of years, I've been able to scale back on how intense I go. There's certain marketing I don't do now, like I don't go door knocking. I've started investing my time in video instead, which is less time consuming, which has kind of opened the door to have more kind of time with my kids and personal life. But I also don't have that I shouldn't say I don't have that crazy drive anymore. Like I said, I know I could go a lot harder in the business, but I've also experienced quite a lot of mental health issues and kind of pretty severe burnout, and I just don't desire that anymore. So sorry to get super deep.
No, I love this.
And you've earned the right.
Way to kill the mood.
I think that's what some people don't realize is you have to earn the right. Right? Like you did the door knocking, you did this stuff. And I think some people, like sometimes they kind of want to skip that step. I mean, and like you've earned the right. So people are like, man, you're really good on the phone. It's like, yeah, like call 1,000 people and then you'll get better. You know what I mean? Yeah. But they kind of want to skip that grind phase. You know what I mean? And some people have the luxury of not having to do it. But some of us didn't have the luxury. You were in heat. I was in cold, right when I was doing it. But like you earned the right to do it. Now you've done things to maintain. You've had the right work ethic and the right honesty and everything else. But like you've got, especially if you're a new agent, like just go. You got to go get your at bats right. You can just get them over with.
And that's the thing that probably, I don't want to say it bugs me the most, but we get those comments like, oh, I just wish we had the production that. You guys do. Now Nick does a lot.
It's like go knock two.
I've been called way worse.
But it's like go door knock 2,000 houses.
Yeah, it's
like you want what I have, but are you willing to do what I did?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to go back to mental health for a second. What did you, if you don't mind sharing with it, what do you found messed you up the most, and what are you doing now that's helped the most?
So I'm super open about my mental health. So I have a panic disorder, so I'll go into almost like a paralytic state where I can't get out of bed.
Wow!
Because I'm so essentially so scared for the day.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole world is crashing down on me. So we are single income, so it's just me. When you're 100% commission with 2 kids and a wife, there's a lot of pressure involved. So. In real estate, it's up and it's down, and you get a phone call and you think, okay, I'm going to have 9 deals that just crash.
Right, yeah.
Today.
Well, it's never one at a time, right? It's like good, 7.
It's always 3.
Right? Like it's
always 3.
Yeah. It is always 3. Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
So kind of part of that played into it. There's certain other triggers as well that affect me. So, and that's one of the reasons why I've started just to kind of pull back and just make sure I'm investing in my health.
Yeah.
You know, start to kind of exercise a little bit more and spend time with kids and stuff that makes me
Yeah.
truly happy.
Yeah.
Now, I love real estate, but there are stresses with real estate too.
Sure.
So again, that's why I've really invested probably the last 2 or 3 years in just getting that mix of life, so I can look after my health
Yeah.
and still kind of be around for my kids.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Right on. And I appreciate the honesty, you know, because often I'll talk about here. So I've been sober for 19 and a half years, and there was a time where I was worth less. And the idea of that kind of waking up like you're shot out of a cannon, and there's just like this abject terror that happens. And it's like, well, nothing will calm that down like a few
Yeah.
beers,
Yeah.
which at 7:30 in the morning is a great idea and a horrible idea.
Yeah.
All at once.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I had the genetic predisposition to where, like, well, once we fire up the band,
Yeah.
we want the music to keep going.
Yeah.
And, you know, then that ends up where that ends up. And so kudos to you for having the self-awareness and being able to talk about it, because that's a thing where, you know, there is like, I wear my like hustle porn bullshit or whatever, but partly because I try to get my guys to the nobody cares part. Based on not because you're not working hard enough, nobody cares because they're too worried up their own ass about whatever, you know? And so the idea of like, kudos to you for the video and for jumping in there and then just do it, you know, because obviously now we're in a studio, and my biggest thing for folks is to just pull the trigger and just start, you know? And I was on this panel the other day at the MLS meeting in Oak Lawn, and it was doom and gloom, and everybody was freaking out. And my thing was to kind of talk about the systemization or whatever. It's like I have the rock star agents that I've dealt with for the last 4 or 5 years that nothing's different. They were still doing like the badass marketing and the full blown, you know, the full treatment, you know, 4 years ago. They're doing that now, and they're already about to, you know, their Q2 is looking better than, you know, most of last year already. So it's like, bro, you know, so that consistency and the idea of just do what you do. And so like on the side of figuring it out, it's like, I don't have any safety nets or anything like that. So what do you do whenever you're in that moment of, is it just basically like power through it? Because I ended up where I had to. I guess where I'm going with that is a lot of times my growth and my ability to change came out of I didn't have a choice.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you
so-
learn more from your failures than you do your success.
Yeah.
You know, I had this talk last night, 2 nights ago with my son. You know, we're at baseball and we're doing this. You learn more when you're up against the wall.
Yeah.
It might not go the way you want it, but then you figure out for that next step. And, you know, kind of going back to your other question of how you figured it out, I was lucky. I had the cheat code. I worked with my mom for 13 years. So, you know, you go to a lot of these events and a lot of these places, and they'll always be like, well, what's your why? Why do you do this? And I remember coming back from one of those things, and I looked at my dad. I'm like, what's your why? He's like, electricity, water. I mean, I would hear the stories about my parents when they would get married. They would go collect Coke bottles to get gas money to drive around. So I think it's just that mentality of where
Yeah.
you said people don't want to go get at their bats.
Yeah.
Well, back when my parents and everybody was doing it, that you just had to if you wanted to live and survive. So I think that's the difference thing about waking up every morning is you just get up and you just figure it out and you work through it.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, I would also say there's, for me, going through kind of the stuff I've gone through, there's no such thing as failure. Now, that's what I was petrified of, was failure. But really, like Nick said, there's no, you know, really, what is failure? I mean, it doesn't really exist. You can only really learn lessons from it.
Yes. Well, and I think, like, I know for me, for the longest time, it was not that I was afraid I would fail. It was like I was worried about like what other people would think
Yes.
about the
Yeah.
fact that I failed.
Yeah.
You know, and then now there's something about where like you just lead with your chin and be like, all right, bring it, you
Yeah.
know? And it's like now at 55, like, I don't, how 24 years in real estate, bro. I haven't done anything for 24 years. God. But it's like, I could take an ass whooping. You know what I mean? Where it's like, now, do you guys find it easier to volunteer to do new stuff after because like for me, I always look at, whenever I'm teaching my guys, and it's like, so I don't have kids, but I have this. And how old are your kids, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
My son's 13, my daughter's 11.
Okay, that tracks a little bit more with the what I'm seeing. But like 24-year career, holy mackerel. But where I was going with that is the guys that work for me now are all in their mid to early 20s, And so I tell them, you know, they always get ate up by the Instagram stuff, or it's like they see the highlight reel or whatever, and it's like, stop making content and doing stuff to impress other people, and then just you know, kind of do the whatever's the next right thing in front of you, and then that gives you evidence, and confidence comes from evidence. Where it's like, if I've got skins on the wall, well, then I no longer have imposter syndrome because, well, look what I've got skins.
We've talked about that. I mean, we've fallen into where you'll see certain agents and they're looking on Instagram, you're like, man, they are killing it. What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And then you start feeding into that. But then at the end of the year, you look at it and you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't correlate and that doesn't track. So it's
Right.
everybody falls into it. I just think obviously as you're a little bit younger, you know,
Well,
it's become more of their day-to-day
Oh,
life.
yeah.
And I've actually just had this as well, like a legit example. So I did, like Nick said, I do a decent amount of video, and one of them was I started doing more luxury tours. Now I don't do a whole bunch in luxury real estate. I'm trying to branch myself into that. So I went and I did a video tour last week to post on YouTube next week. Subscribe to the channel. Britt Selduff, best DFW. So I took a picture outside this $3 million property. Well, the amount of people who've reached out about, oh my gosh, you got this $3 million property? That's awesome. I'm like, no, I don't. Like,
Right.
but they just associate my picture in front of that property as being my listing. And it's the same with
Yes.
Instagram and everything.
And now I will say right out of the gate, kudos to you for automatically saying, no, it's not my listing. Because the trend now is, and this was a big bone of contention and a hot topic the other day on the panel, was this sort of fake it till you make it 10x to the nth degree, where it's like, okay, wait a minute. You're 21 years old and you're at $1 million listing and you're not mentioning a broker, a listing agent or anything. So it's like, you're kind of playing, and it's like, that doesn't track, you know. And then my guys, after they learn, like, I have a license or whatever, and I can look things up, and they're like, look up that guy's numbers. And we look at it, and it's like,
Never done that.
well, oh yeah, not that anybody
I
else
did
would
wonder
ever.
where you got that $3 million listing when I saw that picture the other day.
But, well, like I said, there is that right there speaks volumes, where you went to the whole thing of like being genuine. We're like, well, no, I went and did this thing, you know, for the marketing and the branding or whatever, and that's what it was for. It was not to play the role of X. It was to start your journey. That's no different to me. That's the 2024 digital version of door knocking. Where you go and you put in the time, because I will say kudos to anybody that goes out and puts themselves out there and makes the content. But then the rest of it is, okay, well, let's do that, but not under false pretenses. You know?
Well, and I think two things in this whole mental health space, and because I think it's so huge, you know, especially in real estate, it is tough. Like we live with like constant kind of paranoia. Like what's the next shoe that's about to drop, right? We live in like, we have to stay up on trends and all this other kind of stuff. But I think and maybe it's true in other industries, but I think especially in real estate, like it can, if we're not careful, it can define us. Right, like our level of success in real estate can like define us as a person, and that can really mess us up, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, do you have the stuff, or does the stuff have you in a sense? Like, and that can really get with us. But then you're saying like, I think comparison, and somebody else said this for the first time, but comparison's the thief of joy. And it's so easy in this game to like, compare yourself with everybody else. And then as you're comparing, like it will eat you up inside. Like it's a cancer, right? And there's always going to be somebody doing better, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I think when you're looking at other people, it's okay to use them as inspiration. You go, that's really cool. He has this awesome YouTube channel. I can learn something from that. But if I get into that comparison, I'm going to crash. I'm going to fall off the cliff. So using other people, maybe it's inspiration, but running your own race, which is kind of like you said, it takes a while to get there, right? To figure out how to run your own race. And at the same time, you know, we talk about a lot of high achievers. What do we do when we have a bad day? We just work harder. We just go after it, just do more. Right? And I think a lot of high achievers, they don't have a good process for recovering. They don't have a good way of getting back up. You know what I mean? It's like we have a spare tire. We have a first aid kit. We have all these things in our physical world when something goes wrong. But in our mental world, most people haven't built a good toolkit there. You know, questions to ask themselves, things to go through, people to call, what are all the things that you can have in that toolkit to help you get back up when you have a bad day. And I think it's really important. So
to the mental health side of things, I'm just curious, this hit me where I'll pull the curtain back where it's like, okay, there was a time where, you know, the grind phase or whatever, where, and especially during COVID, I couldn't hire anybody to come with me. So it's like, I learned to do all of it, like the photos, the video, the drone, all of that all at once in a system. Cause actually Mike met me at a previous studio, and that place got put out of business by COVID. And so I had to pivot into real life. But there's this weird, the question or the thought process that I'm curious about is, there's this weird inverse proportion of the more successful I got, it was like the more that I let go, the more successful I got. Yet I had this like internal barometer of guilt or whatever, where I felt like I wasn't doing enough, or like I felt like I didn't deserve what I was getting, which is this weird mind fuck that just like wouldn't let go.
Yeah.
You know? And like, have y'all ever, and so like, obviously Mike is nodding. So
Like, yep.
yeah.
That was me.
And so, okay, so like, cool. And like there, part of the telling on myself and getting it out there is the fact that, okay, now you realize, oh, you're not alone. You know, so like, I don't know, I still like even refer to myself as like, okay, the workaholic bachelor or whatever. And it's like, well, the truth is, I don't really have anything else going on. But there is that thing where I feel like if I slow down, my guilt index goes up. Yeah. And I'm not sure, y'all have that or?
But I think that's just your internal drive. Because, you know, like we'll be playing golf with my buddies from high school on a Saturday, and a phone call will come in, and I'll put it on my ear, and I'm putting. They're like, well, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, if I was selling your house, would you want me to do that? But it's also, if I take a 2-minute phone call right now, it can save me an hour and a half on Monday if I wait.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of times, too, and going back to when you talk about Instagram and, you know, successes, I think the biggest thing is you have to figure out what you want your success to be. Because there's people that get into this business and say, look, if I can sell 2 extra houses a year, it's extra pocket cash, pay for my kids' books at school, that's all I want. I'm retired, that's all I really want. And it's just figuring that out. Because I've got friends that have been in it half the amount of time I have. They've got teams with 15, 20 agents, selling twice what we do. And I'm like, you couldn't pay me to do that. You know, it's their success because that's how they wanted to build it.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, in this business, it's either black or red. You're either making money or losing money. You can build a huge team, but you might be making considerably less than one person doing it all on their own.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing is no matter where you're at in life, whether you're number 1, number 2, number 100, you just have to get to where you feel not complacent, but happy with what you're getting.
Yeah.
So now on that internal drive, because like for me, it doesn't turn off.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Kim, we talked about the other day. I think most people don't, kind of like what you're referencing, is most people don't know what they actually want, right? You ask most people, why'd you build a team? And it's like they kind of thought that was what the next thing they're supposed to do, or somebody kind of pushed them into it, right? Or whatever. Yeah, it's like, well, isn't that what I'm supposed to do? It's like, I don't know, is that what you want? They're like, I don't know. We're like, well, then what are we doing? Right. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows anything, but we're driving real fast, right, for not knowing where we're going. Yeah. And like, there's nothing worse than like going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. You know, it's like, I'm real enthusiastic, but where are we headed? So I think for you, for so many people, it's going back to like, what do you actually want? And taking the time to shut up, sit down, and figure out what do you want. And there's all these areas, right? There's my health, my relationships, my friendships, finances, right? All the stuff. And like you kind of figure out what do I want? And then how do I get those things to dovetail together? And then as soon as you do, something happens, right? So you got to get good at the process of that, right? So I think back to your point, it's like, if there's a frustration, do an investigation. Like, do you like that internal drive never turns off? If you love that, cool. Like, if it's not screwing up any other part of your life, keep going for it. Where you were realizing is like, hey, you had a great internal drive, but then you're like, oh shoot, like my name's Dad. Like I got to introduce myself to you again, right? Because I've been gone for so long, right? I'm being facetious, but like you go, okay, this isn't working anymore at the level it was. Okay, I got to go back and redo it. So I think for me as a coach is like looking for what are there's not a one size fits all. So what's working? What are the frustrations? And then let's do some intentional reflection along the way before we get to the end and go like, oh wow, I got to the top of the mountain, but I left my kids in the past. Or I got to the top of the mountain, but we didn't make any money.
Or I hate it here.
Or I hate it here. Yeah.
I got to the top.
I hate running a team, right? Whatever it is. Yeah.
Well, and I went through that because I started a team 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I thought that's the next thing I want to do.
Yeah, this is what you do next, right?
Yeah, and I thought I would enjoy it. And actually, I ended up hating it. I ended up hating real estate.
Yeah.
And it became super stressful. I had zero time.
Yeah.
I made more money.
Yeah.
But I hated it. And this is kind of where I go back to there's no real thing as failure. I thought I had the majority of it all figured out. And actually, when I'm looking at my team, and I made some mistakes. I was naive, thinking I had everything set up. So when I stopped it, I was able to kind of look back at my business and be like, look, I can actually do X, Y, and Z so much better.
Well, so many people wouldn't have stopped just because their ego would have got involved, or all this other kind of stuff, right? But it's like you as a leader, you have to reserve the right to pivot, and it's like, hey, based on what I know now, I need to make an adjustment. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm giving up necessarily. It's like, okay, now that I see what this actually is and what, like, I don't want that. I want this, right? And giving yourself permission to do the pivot along the way, I think is really important.
Boy, that is huge. It's like so many folks, and I learned this about myself by seeing it in others, where like so many folks are looking for somebody to give them permission to do something different.
Yeah.
Where like y'all have just said, like, well, that just seemed that's the next right, that's the next thing in line. It's like you get successful, then you get a team, and then you did it, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know that didn't have to be the next thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we hit 40 minutes.
I love it. Boom.
Right on.
You guys did good.
Yeah.
Good to hang out. I'm glad that I love the conversation we have where it started off with like, all right, routines are everything. And then we're all like,
Well, and that's
that was good. I like it.
And that's
But
the reason that
priority management. I mean, isn't this whole conversation about priorities?
Yes.
Right. It's priority management in my day. Priority management and like, why am I building this? Priority management, like, what do I actually want? Priority management in kids' time. Like I think it's all priority. Getting really, really clear on what your priorities are, and then building your life, your schedule, your day, your friendships, everything around what you say is
and
important.
to tie it into the mental health thing is like becoming self-aware enough to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Because like so much of my shit was imported that I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
It's like, wait, that's not my voice. You know? So
we all have to do hard stuff, but you shouldn't hate every day. Right? And there's some high achievers like, isn't
That's a
this
red
what it's
flag.
supposed to be? And it's like, we're all supposed to do hard stuff. Like, if every day is like, I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my life, I hate my like, maybe that's not great. ...
the mortgage business.
Yeah. There we go.
I learned that. Yes, I learned that at City. Yes. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
I'm officially fired up. Take us out,
Boom.
Peter.